Howdy Simmers. 2023 was a pretty good year for The Sims 4. The Sims team gave us a lot of heavily requested features this year. We got the infants update, we got horses, we saw the return of stuff packs, and most recently we got the ability to build our own apartments. As we all know, there is more Sims 4 content on the way, and I have made a short-ish list of some of the things that I would like to see come to The Sims 4 over the next year. Keep in mind that this list is not in any particular order, it's not based on how much I want a feature, and some of the stuff on this list isn't even stuff that I personally want, but more so things that I know other people want and that I would like to see come to the game for those people. The first thing on my list is bands, and I think that it would make for a really good game pack. We already have a few instruments in The Sims 4. We have the microphone, we have guitars, violins, pianos / keyboards, but I feel like this pack would be really good to introduce some new instruments, like a drum set, cellos, trumpets, saxophones, etc. And the reason I want to see all of these instruments come to this pack is because I really want the ability to be able to make different kinds of bands. Think like jazz bands, rock bands, maybe even an orchestra. Okay, maybe an orchestra is a little too far. But basically, I want it to be very versatile, and I want to have a lot of options. Another thing I would like to see with this pack is some kind of rehearsal event that you can schedule on the calendar. And I want it to be an event that you can actually go to with your sim, not some kind of rabbit hole. So that way you can actually see your sim practice and perform music with their band. And I love cross-pack integration. I feel like we don't have a lot of it in The Sims 4, but I feel like this pack would pair really well with Get Famous, because imagine your sims getting famous through their band. The last thing I have for this pack is that I don't want bands to be limited to young adults and older or teens and older. I want it to be accessible to child sims through Elder. In order for this to work, it would require there to be some kind of update where kids can use all of the instruments that we have in the game, because I know that they can use a kid version violin and they can kind of use the piano. I don't know if they actually can, like, do more than just like pecking a few keys, but I know that they can't use guitars, and I don't believe they can use microphones either. So that would require those to be updated to where kids can use them as well. The next thing on my list is arcades. And now that we have stuff packs back, I feel a little bit more confident that this could happen, because I definitely feel like arcades would make a good stuff pack. For this pack, I would love for arcades to have their own lot type. I just feel like right now there aren't really a lot of choices for family-friendly lots in The Sims 4. Like, we have bars, we have spas, we have cafes, and none of those are really like family-friendly stuff. Like, you're not going to take your kid to a spa and pay 200 simoleons for them to get a facial. Like, we need more family-friendly or child-friendly lots. And when I say child-friendly, I mean stuff that actually caters to children. We do have one giant arcade game in The Sims 4, and I can't remember if it's Base Game or if it's from Get Together, but I would love to see more classic arcade games like Whack-A-Mole and Test Your Strength and Skee-Ball, and this isn't really a game, but a claw machine, maybe. And in playing those games, your sim can earn tickets, which they can turn in for prizes, and I imagine the prizes would be like really small things like the future cube and a thing of clay and maybe like a pair of earbuds or something. You know, those free earbuds that keep getting dropped into your Sims inventories? Like, just small things, because we all know that going to like arcades like Chuck E. Cheese's, the prizes there are never really good unless you have like, I don't know, 5,000 tickets or so, maybe. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. And again, with the cross-pack integration, I would love for bowling alleys to be functional in the arcade lot type. Arcades and bowling just pair really well together, and bowling alleys don't actually have their own lot type in The Sims 4, and I believe they actually only function in bars. So I would love for them to be able to function in arcades and honestly just other places where they would fit in, because, again, you're not gonna bring your kid to a bar. You know, the only reason you would bring your kid to a bar at this point is so they can go bowling. The next thing is a feature that has been heavily requested over the years, and that is fairies. I am not a big occult person myself, but I do very much like fairies, and I would love to see them come to The Sims 4, because we do already have a bunch of other occults. We have the spellcasters, werewolves, mermaids, even though we don't really talk about them, vampires, aliens. Fairies is one of the only ones that we're missing, and I feel like fairies deserve their own game pack. I say this every time that I talk about occults in The Sims 4, but occults end up being so much better when they have their own game pack. Compare werewolves in The Sims 4 who had their own game pack to the mermaids that came with Island Living. Werewolves got their own skill tree where they could learn a variety of things over time, and the lore in that pack was absolutely amazing. But the mermaids in Island Living weren't the main feature of that pack. They were kind of an afterthought. So they don't have a skill tree. They have a few abilities, but nothing super interesting. They get a cave and some mermaidic kelp, and that's basically it for them. Like, they are probably the most boring occult in the entire Sims 4 game. And before anyone tries to make the excuse that the skill trees weren't implemented into the game yet, yes, they were. They were implemented in Vampires, which came out in 2017. Island Living came out in 2019. And since we're talking about skill trees, yes, with Fairies being a game pack, they would have one. And in that skill tree, they would have abilities such as manipulating Sims' emotions, being able to shrink, and maybe doing some sort of gardening magic. I don't know. That's just some of my ideas. Or we could have different types of fairies. Think like the talents from Pixie Hollow and the Tinkerbell movies. So we could have like weather fairies where they control the weather and make it like snow in the summer. Or we could have garden fairies where they control the life states of different plants. Or even fire fairies where they can start fires and put them out. The last thing I have for this pack idea is the world. And I imagine it would be some kind of like nature world, kind of similar to Sylvan Glade, which is the hidden world that you can access in Willow Creek. This world here, which I do use a reshade, so it's not actually this bright, but it is still really gorgeous. It's got like pink trees, the rocks are kind of pink. Everything here is kind of a pinkish tone, and I love this. So something like this world, but obviously with a few more lots. The next thing is kind of morbid, but I'd like to see funerals come to The Sims 4, ideally in the form of a base game update, or potentially a game pack, kind of like My Wedding Stories and how it improved weddings. Now, I did just lose my grandmother at the end of last month, so you're probably thinking, why in the world is this something that I want? But this is a life sim game, and funerals and death are a very real part of life, and I feel like it is just something that belongs into the game. But ideally, that is why it would be better as a pack, because I know not everyone is maybe comfortable with having funerals in the pack, and death may be like a really hard thing for them to deal with. So for that reason, I could understand why it would be better as a pack instead of a base game update. But my ideas for this are very simple. There would be some kind of like visitation event, kind of like a wake, the actual funeral event, and then I feel like this would be a good opportunity to actually add 2 new lot types, which is a funeral home lot type and a cemetery lot type, because it is kind of interesting, I guess, that we don't actually have a cemetery lot type in the game. And ideally, we would have a system similar to My Wedding Stories where you can make everyone, sit down, watch what's happening, everyone can kind of gather in one space very easily. But obviously, I don't want it to be, broken or as broken as My Wedding Stories, because we all know that that pack has problems. Moving on from that, but also kind of in a similar thing, I would love there to be an Elders game pack. Elders don't really get a lot of love in The Sims. I know we just recently got an Elder-specific trait with the Sims 4 for Rent, but I feel like there is so much more that could be for elders and that we could have specifically for elders, because I feel like they are just a very overlooked life state in this game. And again, ideally this would just be a base game update, but we all know that it would most likely end up being a pack. So if this were to be a pack, I feel like adding a retirement home lot type would be really, really good, and you could obviously send your elder sim to live in that retirement home, and the idea is that any family members of that sim would just randomly show up to visit every now and then, and hang out, chat for a little bit, catch up. Bingo nights, I feel, would be kind of a fun thing to add with this pack. Just like a little activity, and I don't know. Bingo to me is very like elder-esque activity. I don't know. Maybe it's just my family, but I'm pretty sure my grandma was like a huge bingo person, so I don't know. Bingo nights would be fun in The Sims, I think. A kind of small feature for this pack would be that elder Sims can write wills to their family, Maybe Sims can go to the house and like actually pick out stuff to take with them. I know I took a lot of stuff from my grandma after she passed, and there are things that I will treasure forever, but not like steal stuff from the house, like actually pick out things that you want, or, you receive items based off of what was left in that will once they pass. I think that would just be a very very realistic thing, and that's something that would be kind of nice. And the last thing is something that's actually from The Sims 3, but it's the ability for elders to walk with canes, because we all know elders are not just like energetic walking around the entire neighborhood or anything, you know. They do have back problems. Sometimes it is hard for them to walk. And honestly, with elders having canes, you know, why keep it specific to elders? That is something that could just be like in the game for people, because, you know, younger people can walk with canes too. But ideally, that would be something that could come with an elder based pack. The next thing on my list is like a very small addition, but it's just a few more types of transportation in the game. We already have bikes in The Sims 4, and we have quite a few versions of it from across like different packs and the base game. But I would love to see things like skateboards or hoverboards. Scooters I feel could fit in as well. And also we have the skating rink, like roller skating rink and ice skating rink from Seasons. But I think I'd like for roller skating to be just like on its own thing. Like you're walking down the street, you know, on the sidewalk, and you just see someone roll past you on roller skates, you know. I don't want it to be limited to the rink. So I used to roller skate when I was younger, just like on the sidewalk in front of my house. I was horrible, but I know for a fact that there are people who just roller skate around town and, you know, do their thing. So I feel like that would be fun to just have like kind of little small modes of transportation other than bikes. A while back, there was a community vote for a stuff pack, and one of the choices was like an arts and crafts kind of thing, which brings me to our next thing, which is some kind of Hobbies pack, whether that would be a stuff pack or a game pack, and I definitely feel like a stuff pack would be the best option. But we already have a bunch of hobbies like baking and knitting and, you know, music-based stuff, but some of the other hobbies that I feel could be added to the game are things like pottery and sewing, actual drawing, like not painting, but doing like actual sketching and drawing and such, and also scrapbooking, which is kind of a hobby that I've been wanting to get into for a while, like scrapbooking, junk journaling, whatever you call it. So I just feel like some more artistic kind of stuff would be fun in the game. And last, but absolutely not least, is I want to see representation for places outside of the United States and the cultures within those places. This is something that I wanted last year. It's something that I want now. It's something that I'm always going to want, and I know that there will never be enough representation in this game for everyone, but even the littlest bit of representation still helps and still counts towards that, even though we definitely deserve more of that. And let's be honest, we have enough United States-based worlds in this game. We need some more. We need some more diversity, and that is what I want to see a lot of in 2024. And while we're talking about worlds in The Sims 4, I have ideas for places in the world that Sims 4 worlds could be inspired by. An African-inspired world would be wonderful. They could base it off of places like Nigeria or Egypt, which I definitely feel like we are in need of another desert world. It's been a while, and so for that reason, I think Egypt would be the way to go with like the pyramids and such. I'd like to see a South American world as well, based on like Brazil, and also Western Europe with places like France, Ireland, and Spain. You get the idea, right? We don't need any more US-based worlds, okay? There are a lot of other places in the world that are absolutely gorgeous that Sims 4 worlds could be inspired by. The final thing on this list under representation is representation for our disabled Simmers. Wheelchairs have been requested a number of times over the years, and The Sims 4 and maybe the Sims franchise in general has just never delivered. Disabled Simmers, I feel, are one of the most overlooked groups in the community, and we have a little bit of representation for some disabilities, like we have the hearing aids for those who suffer from a hearing disability, but wheelchairs have been a thing that a lot of players have asked for over the years, and we just have never gotten them in The Sims. So I want this for them, for those people who have asked for wheelchairs for several years, for those Simmers who are in wheelchairs and want to be represented, who want to see themselves in the game. This is something that is genuinely important to me, and I feel like the more that we talk about it, the more that it is heard, the more likely we are to actually get it in The Sims. So this is a very, very important thing to me. And that is my entire list for what I want to see in The Sims 4 in 2024. Obviously, this is not everything, and there is still plenty of content that could probably be thought of that we don't have in The Sims 4, but this is the list that I came came up with. And again, none of this is in any particular order. It's not based on how much I want something. This is just everything that I could think of that I want to see next year in The Sims. Let me know in the comments if you agree with anything on my list, if you have any other ideas for any of the stuff that I talked about, and also what you want to see in The Sims 4 in 2024. I hope you all have a good new year and a great start to 2024, and with that, I'm gonna go. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you have notifications on so you don't miss anything. Be sure to follow my socials, links are below. I'll see y'all soon. Bye.